And there it is. A slight millennial pause, but we are here to welcome you to the Helping Friendly podcast on this Monday, August 8th, 2022, to recap the third night of Fish's Atlantic City run, but also to look at the Atlantic City run as a whole complete piece, because it's one of those runs where I feel like you can do it. It's our first 3-night run of the summer tour. Megan was there. We're going to have an excellent guest who's going to join us here, Mr. Brian Weinstein, the host of the incredible, and I don't say incredible lightly, it's an incredible podcast, Attendance Bias. You can see it on the screen here. Follow Brian at Attendance Bias. We will talk about that podcast as well as music. Podcasting about podcasts. What a concept. But we will talk about music. We will dive deep into this. It's going to be a jam-packed episode of the Helping Friendly podcast as we move into another phase of Fish's summer tour. Before we do that, they're on my screen. They haven't said a word in a minute and 13 seconds because I've been talking. I've got Megan. I've got Jonathan. How are you guys doing here today?
I'm great. I'm tired, but I'm really, really great. I'm still riding the high.
Holding the door for you to speak.
Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan. I'm great. I mean, I've had like very little sleep this weekend, maybe like 12 hours all 3 nights, but I've had an absolute blast this weekend. So I'm still happy.
Sign of a good weekend.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted her to go first, because I'm just ordinary.
There's nothing ordinary about you, Jonathan.
I watched some Fish concerts, like parts and almost all of some Fish concerts this weekend from my house, and played some bass guitar and some electric guitar, and it's hot outside, and the Fish band is really good right now.
I can confirm
Those are
that.
my updates.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think that it's boring to talk about Fish when they're playing really, really well?
Depends on what you say.
It's a fair point.
Nailed it.
It's a fair point.
Exactly. Not for me. I love talking about them when they're good. It's when they're bad that I feel like strange talking about them.
I guess I just like, I'm really excited to dive into this. It's just like, I feel like Jonathan's and my texts this weekend while you and RJ were at the shows were less like deep dives and more just like, wow, that was really, really good. Oh, that was really, really good. Oh man, that was really, really
during
good.
the jams when we just sent like gifs of people rocketing into space and aliens dancing. I bet those were fun to look at later, Megan.
We had a good gift game during jams.
You really did. It was the best to pull it up too at set break, because I don't look at my phone while the show's going on. So I'd pull it up at set break and I'd have to try to figure out what song you were talking about when you were like, wow, that peak was great. And I'm like, shit, which one, guys? You got to like label these things for me.
You got to be in the moment, man.
Yeah.
You got to scroll sideways to see the timestamps. And
it's just like a lot of cross-referencing, you know? I don't know if I was ready for that at set break.
We were in a good flow state because everyone kind of built off the other, but then one person would change a little bit. I mean, we're talking gift game right now in private text threads, so I'm sorry to everyone out there for the incredibly boring content right now, but it was fun for me. It really made the Sigma Oasis jam and part of the second set on Friday something really meaningful. But you know, it's wild. I'm taking the touring baton from you, Megan. You've been seeing so many Fish shows here. I'm going to see 7 Fish shows in a row, 3 nights at Alpine, 4 nights at Dick's. By the end of this, I'm going to be ready for like a break myself. But I'm thinking about 2 things. One, I need to set my phone notification to like off notifications during the shows, because I just know that you guys are all going to be going back and forth the way that we were going back and forth, and then turn it on at set break. And 2, I'm trying to figure out, can I actually get a good night's sleep and have the most fun possible this weekend? And we're going to test that. We're going to test that hypothesis. I don't think that one of those is going to fail.
I will say, if you don't have HFPod events all day, both days, you'll
Yeah.
do better than you did.
That's a fair point.
Well, I'll tell you the first thing you can achieve by going into focus. If you're as an iPhone user, go to the focus and set up a custom focus for a show that allows you to only hear from the people you need to hear from. So whoever you're at the show with or whatever, and nothing else, because all that stuff will still arrive in your phone. You can go look at it later, but then it won't show up on your screen. So if you do pull it out to see the time, you won't see all the other stuff that you don't want to see.
That's probably what I need
So
to
do that.
This is a good
And as
point.
for the rest, if you're doing it right, probably not getting enough rest, Brian.
Brian, you can sleep when you're dead. Like, this is
This is a
Fish
good
Tour.
point.
You only get
This is a
one
good
summer
point.
tour.
I'm seeing some very, very
This
close
year.
friends this year. I'm seeing some very close friends staying in a hotel with some very cool people. A Holiday Inn Express, if you will. So I'm not a Fish fan. I just stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. It's going to be my line all weekend, and people are going to be like, "Get the hell out of here with your dad jokes." But we're going to move on from that. We're going to tell you before we jump into the show here, we have a couple bits of business to get through. Our good friends at Passion House Coffee are the sponsors for HFPod on tour. Here at Osiris, we're powered by a few things. Music. Megan is so powered by music right now at this point in her life, but she's also powered by coffee because she needs coffee to survive. We're always drinking Passion House coffee here at Osiris Media. I'm actually drinking some right now because we have our own blend, the Ocean of Osiris. Please visit passionhousecoffee.com. You can see it on your screen if you're watching, or you could do this if you're listening at home and use the code OSIRIS, OSIRIS, for free shipping on every order. And as you probably know, we have been running a contest all summer long, and we will continue to. Even though Fish is moving away from the beach, we are going to still talk with them and still listen to their ocean songs, the love of ocean songs that they play. Whenever they play an ocean song, tag at OsirisPod plus at Passion House Coffee on Twitter. Use hashtag Ocean of Osiris. We will pick 2 winners at random each show. And since we have not done an episode since Thursday's recap, we did a Friday mid-tour recap. Thursday, we did our Pine Knob episode. Since we did not do anything this week and we have a bunch of winners that we want to celebrate, we got at Darth Myers, at Seadog Run 12, at Hoffam, who won twice. You can enter as many times as you want, and you can win multiple times. Won twice. And friend of the pod, very, very good friend of the pod, Mr. Kevin Hogan at Radiator 9987. All of them have Passion House coffee coming their way. And
Congratulations.
Jonathan, what happens if Fish plays Sea and Sand?
Oh, well, they get the grand prize. Well, assuming you text the things, right? You have to tweet at OsirisPod and at Passion House Coffee, and you use the hashtag Ocean of Osiris, and they do it for Sea and Sand. Then you win the grand prize, which is a coffee over Zoom with Tom Marshall and RJB, which
it's a cool thing.
Those guys are pretty cool to hang. So I mentioned that's pretty good. We already gave away one grand prize this tour, right?
Yeah, they played Gula Papyrus, which is where the Ocean of Osiris line comes from. But then we decided, you know what? There's got to be another ocean song that,
let's keep it going.
If they played, it's going to be a big deal, and that's Sea and Sand. So let's all hope. Let's all make it happen. Let's all make Sea and Sand. Let's manifest. That's the exact word I was looking for. This is why we work together. We have to manifest Sea and Sand because it would be an incredible moment. And I just hope it happens deep in set 2 on the second night of Dick's with Jonathan standing right to my right, just losing his mind. And then they go into Albuquerque.
Really want to see me cry?
I do.
You really want to see me ugly cry?
I just want to give you a big hug and be like, dude, they're doing it. You're here. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. Right. That'd be good. So Passion House, we love you. Thank you so much for everything that you guys do for Osiris. And, shout out EV Dude. Need an IV of Passion House after this weekend. What a time to get that.
Totally.
Ben Goodrich Coffee gets me through fish runs. We get that as well. We also want to tell you really quickly, we have three more very quick things that we need to tell you all about. First of which is this Thursday, I will be in Milwaukee with our good friend RJB to host an evening of live music and conversation with the man Riley Walker, one of my favorite singer-songwriters, made my favorite record of 2021. Awesome, awesome dude. We're going to be doing an interview with him live on stage, plus he's going to play a show at the Cooperage in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Cooperage also acts as a kind of base for if you're in Milwaukee for the fish shows. You can go from there, do shuttles from the Cooperage out to Alpine Valley and back. You don't have to worry about driving out through the farmland. Really, really cool stuff. Awesome, awesome venue. This show and this podcast is brought to you by 88.9 Radio Milwaukee, which is found on the dial at 88.9 FM. Radio Milwaukee helps its listeners discover new music across genres through its two unique radio channels, 88.9 and Hyphen. 88.9 is an alternative station playing all kinds of music. Hyphen is one of the first urban alternative stations in the country, focused on playing all types of black music. Throughout its 15 years on the air, Radio Milwaukee stations have been the first in the country to play artists like Lizzo, Alabama Shakes, James Vincent McMorrow, Valerie June, and more. Both stations add just released music every week and have a gender-balanced playlist and amplify Milwaukee-based artists. You can listen online at radiomilwaukee.org or through the Radio Milwaukee mobile application. And then finally, I just got an update on this. Tickets are going fast. So buy your tickets if you're going to be out here in Denver on Wednesday, August 31st for an evening of music and conversation featuring Taper's Choice. It's our Night Zero event right before Dick's. Low-key, fun, awesome, jam-heavy concert experience. Jonathan and myself, you see him on the screen. We will be interviewing the dudes from Taper's Choice, diving into their inspirations, some of their best shows that they've played thus far this year, where they're going with their jamming, where they see the songwriting, so much that we're going to cover. We'll probably be asking you all for questions as well because we want to hear what you guys think. And then TC, Taper's Choice, will be playing a show at the Larimer Lounge. Get your tickets for that at osirispod.com/Denver. And then finally, before we bring on Mr. Weinstein, who's waiting patiently backstage, as I keep saying, one more thing. Hot off the presses, we got new HFPod shirts, the Helping Friendly t-shirt. Go to osirispod.highlinemerch.com and you can pre-order your OsirisPod shirt. What does it look like? Well, you got to go to the link to check it out. It's pretty cool, though.
They're very cool.
If you know our new logo, it's got a lot to do with our new logo. It's got a really cool HF pod written in that cool Miami Art Deco type of style across the front, and then our fish on the back. It's very cool charcoal gray, super comfortable fit. We're going to be wearing those on the Dick's lot. So go and pre-order those. All sizes available. Shipping should be coming here soon. We'll give you updates on information around that as soon as we have it. But go ahead, pre-order it. Good way to support the show and show off that you love the new look of HF Pod. Plus what we do, all that sort of stuff. So, anything else we need to say? Or should we bring on our bud?
Let's bring him on.
Seems like plenty.
Seems like plenty. Seems like
bring him out.
Plenty. Mr. Brian Weinstein, welcome
Hello.
To the podcast. How are you, man?
Thank you. I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing excellent.
Hey, Brian, it's good to see you
I'm
again.
awake at least.
Good to see you too. I am in about the same amount of space as Megan is. I think I got a little bit more sleep, but it feels like I just kind of re-entered from the multiverse, kind of re-entered life from 3 days in the other universe or the other multiverse where real life doesn't exist and all we do is have fun.
Oh, so good.
Getting my hair cut on Friday, and I was talking to my stylist. I don't know what you call her. The woman who cuts my hair just got back from Electric Forest like 3 weeks prior, and she was talking about how she was like, I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but like I feel like I got back from another dimension. And I was like, I go see fish runs. I get what you mean. Like I'm in normal life right now, but in like
I know exactly what you mean.
I was like, in about a week, I'm gonna be in total like just fantasy world. So I understand it's a challenge to get back into reality.
It was a challenge to get through Brooklyn. to get home too.
Yeah, it was an early morning to get home in time to do the pod. That's for sure.
Well, we appreciate you guys all being here, and Brian, thank you so much for making yourself available. Let's dive into it. Well, I guess before we do that, I do want to give you a moment, Brian. Megan and I have both been on your show, Attendance Bias. Your show, I'm going to try to describe it, and I want you to tell me what I got right or wrong, and take it from there. But as I've listened to it for a number of years now, you have this really cool approach where you admit the idea that being at a show oftentimes makes that show mean more than just listening to that concert. And so you bring people on to talk about really significant things that happen to them at a specific show, dive into the show, give them an opportunity to share, like, why does this show actually mean so much to you? For a lot of people, it shows that, like, not a lot of people in the larger community really relish. For other people, it shows that, like, have a huge impact, but, like, it means more for a variety of reasons. So I went on about a year ago and talked about 12/30/16, one of the most meaningful events of my entire life. Megan was on there to talk 7/21/97. Did I get that right? Is there anything that I missed there, Brian?
Yeah, no, you sold it better than I could. Jonathan, I got my eyes set on you for after this. I want you to come on just as well. But
All
yeah,
right.
it's basically the elevator pitch is an opportunity for fans to tell a story about a meaningful show. That's like the one sentence summary. And yeah, we indulge in nostalgia. It's pretty shameless, but I say that with ownership and a smile. Fish changes our lives for a million different reasons, and it could be an entire show, the guest picks, or in some cases, it could be a set, or it could be one song and performance, or it could be just an encore. I forget exactly who it was, but someone picked the Dick's Thank You encore. And we talked a little bit about the preceding show, but the focus was the the encore itself. So it could be a segment of music or the whole show. And I just want people to tell their story. I pretty much want to build up. If you've ever read The Giver when you were in middle school, kind of like the collective memory of the Fish experience through individual stories.
I love that. Such
Oh,
a good
that's
way to
really
describe
cool.
it. I love that. So check out Attendance Bias. You can follow Brian on Twitter at Attendance Bias, and that is where you will see a lot of links for his show. But you can download it, follow it on all major streaming platforms. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Let's dive in to this show, and I want to approach this from a run standpoint because none of us have gotten together to talk about what this run meant, and we'll get to Sunday. We'll talk about Sunday, but let's start quickly with the vibe of the overall run. What was this run like on the ground? And this segment is brought to us by our friends at Section 119. They are the premier apparel brand where many Fish fans shop to represent their favorite band in everyday life. Their sophisticated designs, epic quality. Section 119 offers donut-inspired button-down shirts, board shorts, dry-fit polos, and hoodies, among many more awesome clothing types. You can use the code you see on your screen here, SUMMER22, for 20% off at Section 119. So, Brian, starting with you, what was the vibe of this run like for you throughout the entire weekend?
It's cliche, but it did feel like a family reunion. It felt like a festival in some ways. And I had the thought on Friday night that I thought it was pretty funny and ironic that the festival template that Fish helped build professionally toward the wider music industry in the mid and late 90s has now been set up in a way where they don't have to do anything except show up. Like this sort of template on like a big 50,000 or 25,000 person capacity show on the beach, lined with bars and merch stands and food trucks and all that you could find at the Great Went or Lemon Wheel, is now available to any artist. And now they're coming back to it. It's come full circle. And it is much more accessible than most of their festivals in terms of location. But it had that vibe where people you hadn't seen all year, or I hadn't been to any shows at all this summer. I was kind of busy, front loaded my summer getting married. So
Congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But I was detached from the Fish experience for maybe the first time in 26 years. So getting back to it, it really felt like a big homecoming for a lot of people. And it also felt like everyone I spoke to had already been to shows this summer. because the Northeast has been so saturated. But everyone kept talking about highlights and highlights and highlights from all these different places up and down the East Coast. And it seemed to coalesce here, both on a social level and a musical level. It was wonderful. I hope they do it again next year.
I love your comment about the festival thing because, as anybody
Yeah.
watching from home knows, during set break, they on Live Fish they focus the camera on the Ferris wheel. I don't know where that was relative to the actual concert, but we all saw the Ferris wheel, and that just made me think about those festivals with the lights going around and on the thing.
It's got to be a Ferris wheel. If it's the festival,
Yeah.
it's got to be there.
Exactly.
It's a really interesting logistical point because, people keep asking, like, when is the next festival going to be? Obviously, there was a festival that was supposed to happen that didn't happen. We will not say its name. It feels like was the first of these Bader Field in 2012, where they started doing these 3-night runs in places like Bader Field,
In Randall's Island in 2014.
Randall's
I had this
Island.
feeling.
Randall's.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
That was fun. I like that venue a lot.
I feel like Northerly had an idea of doing something like this, but not quite. As
Northerly was kind of like this.
open.
It was an open, big, huge space. Like the stage looked like a festival stage for Fish. It seems like the point of, like, the infrastructure is now there within the music industry that Fish doesn't have to do it themselves, rather than putting all of their resources into an end of tour festival or a mid-tour festival. Whenever they decide to do it, they now have this ability to just, like, show up in Atlantic City on the beach, or show up in Mexico on the beach, or Randall's Island, or wherever it may be, and basically be like, here's a 3-night run. It's an escape for everyone out there, and it also feels, in a sense, like a festival. Do you guys, I mean, that's a cool thing, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
awesome. Yeah, it really felt like that. I think people are just really pumped up about this tour too in general. And like you said, Brian, with so many people having been to a lot of these shows, showing up for this kind of the last East Coast hurrah was really celebratory and it felt really exciting. I think expectations continue to be so high for this band and they just keep meeting them. And that just gets people even more riled up. Sorry, Reba's riled up too.
She's mad
Reba's
that there
riled
was
up.
not a Reba. She's like, come on, there should have been a Reba at this point. So many good repeats. Why didn't we get a Reba? Brian, last question about the vibe. Did you find that it changed throughout the weekend, or did it kind of sustain that festival glow of, by like Sunday night, everyone was just like, I could do this another night. I could do this another night type of thing?
Well, I do think everyone could have done it another night, but the Sunday night, personally, kind of felt like a New Year's Day show of the New Year's run, where it's, I hate to use this word, but it's almost like out of a sense of obligation when you're going through security. It's like, we're so tired. Everyone's been up till 3 a.m, but there's another show tonight. There were definitely fewer people there. The population
A lot
changed.
fewer.
The
Mhm.
capacity changed from night to night. Friday was out probably about a half full or 2/3 full. Saturday was everyone
Packed.
who was going to be there was
Yeah.
there. And Sunday was very laid back in the audience, as I'm thinking mostly as walking in, because once the lights go down and the music starts, the vibe is always the same.
Yeah,
there
I mean,
felt like
that's
there were a lot of people there on Saturday, maybe that were at their first show, where like people had brought people. It had more of like there was more a little bit more talking during the show, that kind of a thing. People explaining things to people, so it definitely had a different feeling on Saturday.
it's interesting because I feel like that's another both good and an interesting aspect of these like faux festival setups, where I remember at Randall's, I only went one night to Randall's. I could only make that work. But like for Magnaball, I went all 3 nights, and everybody that I saw at Magnaball was there all 3 nights, either camping or kind of like me, staying off site and coming in for each show. These shows, they kind of allow you the opportunity for the vibe to change a little bit, and it not to necessarily feel like one cohesive group of people there. Let's dive into the music. And we said we wanted to go through Friday and Saturday briefly before we get to Sunday here. There's obviously a lot to be said. I'll come out and say it just because I've already hinted at it, both offline and here. I don't want to get into any sort of numbers. Like, I don't want to get any sort of ranking system here. That's thanks to my friendship with Jonathan Hart.
And yet,
Because because I don't have a
But
number at this point in time. But I think it is very. I don't think it's absurd to say this. I think Friday night, the August 5th second set was one of the great second sets in Fish history. I don't know where to assign a number. I don't know if that's top 50, top 100, top 200. I mean, there's been a lot of sets. You know, if you get into like the top 300, it's a really, really good group of sets to be in. But that set had everything that I could ever want. It had unexpected song placements, total flow, lots of deep jamming. You get a Down with Disease reprise, Ghost that jams in a really bizarre way, an amazing Harry Hood that went type 2, but then came back and had this glorious ending to it. I think it's one of the greatest second sets the band has ever played without assigning a number to it. Am I crazy for saying that? Did you guys come away with a similar sensation?
I, I, I want to say this, and then we're going to let these people who were there really go off because I'm going to be short. I think you're not crazy. I think it's a great set. I would also go so far as to say that if you start your tape at Sand, it's a perfect
mhm.
show.
I
And
would agree
that's
with
Yeah.
that.
not knocking Chalk Dust and Wilson. I just feel like there was a little dialing in energy on those two. They both felt like abruptly short to me at home. Probably were outstanding on the sand. You guys tell us
A
what you
lot of,
think.
yeah, like a fun, super fun way to open that Friday show with Chalk Dust and Wilson. But then the sand was so serene and stunning and just set it off into this. It was clear that they were going to be listening to each other really intently, playing really creatively, and doing a lot of jamming in this run. And that it was just evident right in that sand. And yeah, that second set was a complete journey for me. It was that kind of set where you just are lost the whole time, just riding the wave and just completely immersed. And you don't even know kind of what songs are when because you're just in one long jam with just the songs as like touchstones. I also feel like the encore was amazing. That free was just spectacular. It's really the jam at the end of that free is incredible. It felt like they didn't want to leave the stage.
As far as the second set being one of the best sets ever played, I agree with Jonathan that you're not crazy for saying that, Brian. But before I would make a statement like that, a lot of the sets that I would call one of the best sets ever, I've listened to over and over and over again, and they have to seep into my bones, and I just haven't had enough time because I was
Fair
so.
point.
It's been a really busy weekend in the best way possible. That said, Friday was my favorite show of the weekend. My
Same.
favorite part of it was either Ghost because it reminded me they're not afraid to get weird still, and Ghost was really weird,
Very.
and there were times where Fish didn't seem so weird in certain years, fairly recently, and I liked it that they could still step into the unknown, not know how they're going to get back, and do it anyway. And also Harry Hood, which in my experience, especially in the 3.0 or 4.0 era, hasn't surprised me as much. I kind of know what's coming during Harry Hood. Usually it's 10
Yeah.
minutes or 12 minutes. They do their kind of spacey or uh, giddy jam in the middle. But this Harry Hood, and I have to re listen to it, the way I described it to Megan in person, it was like when you go on a vacation with your significant other that you've been with for years and you fall in love all over again. Like you find something about this person who you know really well, but you find out something new that maybe you didn't know before. You see them do something in a different setting and it surprises you and it makes you fall in love with them a little bit more. I haven't felt that way about Harry Hood in years and years, but this version brought me back there. So for attendance bias and sentimental reasons, I love Harry
It's,
Hood. For music, it's the Ghost.
but for Hood too, that intro was like it was really special. It was really they were doing a lot of those cool like synthy, spacey kind of dystopian effects, and it just you're right. It made it seem all new. And that Sigma Oasis jam from that show
Yeah.
is absolutely spectacular.
And the Ruby
Truly.
Waves.
And the Ruby
Yes.
Waves that just
Continuing to
raged.
deliver.
It
Really,
I feel like every really great Fish show has a moment like the Sigma Oasis where you're going along. It's a good, fun show, good song selection, but you're not like you haven't lost your mind at this point. And then the band does something where you're like, oh, you guys are on a very, very different level than just playing songs, playing them well. Like you guys are trying to explore something completely new. And that Sigma Oasis was going in such a cool direction. and around 15, 16 minutes, Trey just goes into hyperdrive. And from there through the end of Free, I don't think that they made a mistake from a song standpoint. I don't think that they made a mistake from a musical, like everything. It was just one of those shows where, as I was taking it in, as I've listened back to it, it just felt both intentional and free and open to the moment. And whatever's going to happen, we're going to accept it, which is why you get that really cool Harry Hood intro where Trey's not fidgeting with his rig and saying, I got to get back to this sound before we go into Hood. He's allowing the sounds of Ghost to bleed into Hood in a really cool way.
There's ideally a point in every Fish show where, if you're at the show, you turn to your friend or neighbor or whomever and you give them one of these, which for those listening at home,
Totally.
is kind of a holy shit look. And this show has a lot of those moments.
Yes.
Which is, I think, what we're all looking for.
Yeah. I mean, people were losing it. I mean, I was in like a really intense dance party madness group all weekend, and it was,
I feel like that's the only place that you end up in at Fish shows. I feel like there's
belongs.
no way you're like in the section of people who are just like standing with their arms crossed, like kind of into it. Like everyone around you is just like losing their mind and grooving.
Well, yeah, because I'm losing my mind and grooving. So yeah, we find each other, those people, for sure. But yeah, it was so intense. And I had this awesome guy behind me all weekend. We all were in the same spot all weekend. And he kept just doing things like, wow, yes, like all weekend. It was just so great. I was like, this guy is having, at one point he just exclaimed, I am having so much fun. It's like, just that vibe was just, I felt like people were just losing it. It was really exciting to be there.
I love it. Let's jump to Saturday so that we can do a quick recap here of night 2. This show to me, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts for being there. I think this is one of those shows that is only a prisoner of the moment. I think this is an incredibly good Fish show with incredibly good moments, incredibly good song selection, really good jamming. In particular, I loved the second set. I thought that the jamming in No Man and No Man's Land and Tweezer was stunning. I thought Simple was incredible, but I've seen a bit of negativity around the final 3 songs, getting the Numberline, Golgi, and Slave.
What a shock.
Personally, no shock there.
Yeah,
personally,
really?
I thought it was really, really cool that they came out of such darkness into Numberline. That's one of my favorite moves that the band can go to. It's that move. Total darkness to light. Golgi Apparatus is now a song that you need to see live, because whatever Trey is doing in the quiet segment of the song, it just adds something to it. And the way that they hit the final, him and Fish lined up for the final drum beat, the final cymbal that went right into Slave. It all felt very fluid. It felt excellent to me. Set 1 had some really cool jamming as well in Jin and Character Zero. But to me, the show, were it played on Friday rather than Saturday, I think it's looked at in a slightly different light. It's just coming after a really, really great show. Did you guys, being there, have the same impression, or did you see it differently than how I'm reading it?
I kind of thought that night 2 was not a shadow of night 1, but like the same main components, but a little less so, and a little less consistent in terms of space jamming. But it was there. There were 2 things I noticed, because of the way I listen, and I do try to throw myself over into a show in the moment, but I can't help but get analytical in the moment at the same time. And since I hadn't heard a lot of the tour, almost none of it leading up to these 3, 2 things I noticed especially. Number 1, Trey must be intentionally doing something with his vocals. Have you talked about that on the podcast?
Yeah.
I don't want to repeat it if you have.
Okay. No. Go on.
Get into it.
No, it's I don't know. I don't have a good musical vocabulary, so I don't know if he's trying to sing octaves higher or singing in a different key than he's used to, but it's very noticeable, and 99% of the time it's successful. And I noticed it a lot during night 2. Also, a very common thread, it seems, throughout this tour is the jams in unexpected places, like Leaves at Jones Beach, for example. And here, like you mentioned, Brian, Character Zero had a really nice jam in it, a really good one. And it also seems like they took the joke from the jammed out night or the jam filled night of the Baker's Dozen, where not only did they play a lot of jams, but it was in Lawn Boy and Sample in a Jar, songs that don't usually have jams. And they're kind of taking the joke out of it, but keeping the method. They're doing the thing that was a joke, but now it's not a joke. They're just doing it. And
That's
that
such a
stuck
good
with
way
me
to put
very
it.
well because it was a lot of fun.
It's
I think it's so indicative of them being able to find a groove and get into a jam so quickly now that they can do it even in songs that are more highly composed or weren't big jam vehicles. I feel like you would always expect it just in the songs that have big kind of have had historically big jams, and now you can hear a 555 with like a little jam on it. And I just have to give it up for Jonathan, because the whole time I'm thinking like, I do like West LA Fade Away by the Grateful Dead, because like you can put your windows down. It's like classic studio Grateful Dead. So seeing 555 through that lens, which Jonathan helped me see, really opened me up. And then of course they play like a jammed out one with this like mini
Doesn't hurt.
jam that had this really, divine sound to it. It was really beautiful. I felt like Saturday actually had some incredible moments. And I think the whole second set from No Man's all the way through Simple was just really, really, really good fish.
Yeah.
For us being there, Simple was one of my highlights of this show for sure. And the way that it got super dark and spacey and weird, everyone on the floor in the dance party thought it was 2001. So we did this thing where we're like box out everybody. Like when a song like Disease or like, 2001 comes out, you kind of box out so you have more room. So you kind of like let everybody know around you, like, we're going to need some more space. Like this is a serious dance song. And so we were like, it's 2001, like box out. And so we were kind of doing that. And then it felt very dramatic, the change to Numberline in the moment there. Listening back, it doesn't sound as dramatic, but maybe that's because we were like, it sounded to us like Fishman was playing 2001. And so we were all like, okay, it's 2001. And then when you hear it now, listening back, it sounds like they got pretty quiet before they went to Numberline. But in the moment, it felt pretty intense. And I love Numberline, but it was like, oh.
Yeah.
I want to share with everybody a paraphrase of what I texted you guys yesterday when I was listening to the late set 2, which was how mad were people when they dropped into Numberline, and how much fun did they have singing along and hugging their friends? Because I think that those two things happen to the same people every time. I think this show is really good. It maybe not quite to the level of Friday, but it's not fair to compare them because it's a different day. The sun is in a different place. The earth is in a different place. It's never been in that same position before and will never be again. And they play Olivia's Pool properly. How cool is that? Jam 555.
9th time ever.
Good gin.
Amazing.
Heavy rotation. I will say for those of us at home, the chatter on Twitter about heavy rotation was exceedingly negative. And I was just laughing and laughing for A, I like that song, and B, when it took the turn into the really kick-ass segment of the song, like I like the lyrics, but the latter part of the song is where it's at, right? And people had just been ragging on, and suddenly it's like, oh, this is really good. Yes, it is.
It about broke the internet being there because nobody could. The service was really bad on the field. Yeah, everybody was like, "What is this?" Trying to figure it out. It was really funny.
Well, and what is it? Fish from the Road Twitter actually initially tweeted "heavy things,"
right?
Heavy
they did.
And, yeah, which is brilliant.
Heavy
they deleted
something.
it, but the second set is outstanding, and I noticed something yesterday while listening back to No Men and No Man's Land. And something that I actually had noticed from the Friday night show, I can't tell you what song it was. Trey's been doing this thing where he hits a long sustain and then loops that single note so that continues to play and slowly fade over the course of minutes while he then resumes jamming with the band, and they kind of jam around that tonal center. It's right at the beginning of the No Men Jam. You can go back and check it out. It's very cool to me, but then also I've been thinking more about the jazz droney jams they've been doing, and they get into that in here as well, where a lot of people are shouting out things like "A Love Supreme." When they get to the space, somebody, I think they did it. I think they did it in Raleigh. I know they did it another time on the tour, and it is one of my favorite and maybe newer spaces that they've been visiting lately, and it's well represented in the No Men. And then they jam in Tweezer. It's completely different. It's a very
Mhm.
upbeat,
Yeah.
rhythmic jam. Probably great fun for dancing.
Loved that tweezer.
And yeah, I bet. And then
Yeah.
the Set Your Soul Free is just rock peak jamming, and Simple is great, beautiful, but it like spirals neatly. Like they get to that under pressure bit, and it just kind of
Yeah.
spirals into like weirdness out
Yeah.
of that, which is so fun to listen to. You'll have a good time going back and listen to that on earphones, and yeah, I like Numberline, so I was happy. And the last thought I have is on this Golgi thing is Trey, he's playing this kind of like Revellion, kind of bolero-ish kind of thing on what would normally just be a straight build with a lot of, fat
Mhm.
fanning or fast strumming, and extends that build and the tension in that build so much more than we already did. I love it, and I hope he keeps exploring that, and they keep letting him explore it.
I also think we'd be remiss about night 2. I know we got night 3 to go, but if we did not, no one mentioned Moon Age Daydream, which was
Oh,
an
So
exclamation
cool.
point on that first
it
set.
was
And
so good.
if Backwards Down the Number Line kind of deadened the energy that was building in the second set, Moon Age Daydream set us up. It was just, I love when Fish plays classic rock. I could just say it
It's
that
so
simply.
good.
And everyone was fist pounding. Trey nailed the vocals. That practice or whatever he's doing is paying off, and he gets to show off a little bit in Moon Age Daydream.
Yeah.
But everyone was smiling. Everyone around me was just in the best mood ever. It was a great lead into set break.
Yeah, because everybody thought Character Zero was going to close the set.
Yeah.
And then those
Right.
sets were each like 90 minutes long. They were playing long sets, which was like really
Almost
exciting.
any
And
song,
Mhm.
almost any song after Zero is gonna like
You're
get
surprising.
a great response if Zero
Right.
is in the late slot. So
Exactly.
and it was a
Yeah.
good choice.
It was a good choice.
It's
And Trey's been just headbanging lately. I mean, I saw him a lot, like rocking out this weekend. Like that Tweezer reprise, like he was literally like just his hair just like flying. It was so fun to watch.
I think it's interesting just as we like transition towards night 3 here. Just looking at these set lists, I think about the Merriweather weekend last weekend as we were recapping that. One of the big themes of that weekend was both of those shows, both Merriweather shows started incredibly strong. Like from the jump, the band was playing at a very high level, sustained throughout the first set and into the second set. And then I think collectively we all agreed that a lot of those, like both of those second sets in some cases felt like they fell off into we're just going to do a song followed by a song followed by a song. And there were some good moments in there, but I think overall, I think you really liked night 1, Meg. I think we all agreed on night 2 that we felt like we kind of lost the narrative a little bit. Maybe I'm flipped on your likes there, but it seems like since Blossom, they've taken a little bit more time setting the foundation of the show going into it. To Jonathan's point about night 1, if you start the show at Sand, from there it's just like this perfect show. They kind of are allowing themselves the ability right now to set the table, set the foundation, don't kind of blow people away right out the gates, but then the latter half of the first set and the entire second set feels of a complete piece. And I felt like that was really, really strong here with nights 1 and night 2 in Atlantic City. Maybe a little bit more so on Friday night, but both of them were constructed in a way that by the time they walked off the stage, I was just like, that was a killer Fish show. And I went back and immediately started re-listening once it was posted. Let's jump here to Sunday. We've set the vibe. We've talked about where the band was at going into this. They come out Sunday, August 7th. One of the great dates in modern Fish history. Just a big shout out to 8709, my favorite show of 2009, and 872010. If you have not heard The Light from Greek Theater 2010, please, when this podcast is over, stop what you're doing. and go and listen to that light. It is one of my favorite all-time 3.0 jams. But they come out, they open up with Wolfman's, go into Tube, Mountains of the Mist, Ocelot, which fades into Fluffhead, Mercury fades into Gumbo, and then that fades into Carini, which ends the set. Brian, you were in attendance. What was your big highlight of set one of Sunday, August 7th?
Set one, I would split either between Tube, but I think it really has to be Carini. Something about Carini, it sounded a little gnarlier than it has to me in recent years, and the jam was excellent. I wrote in my notes, there was is a short jam. It wasn't very long, but I wrote down in my notes as I was listening, is this a taste of what's to come in the second set? Kind of thinking back to what you were saying earlier, Brian, about it. Is it going to like loop back to Friday style of space and experimental jamming? It didn't. I thought that Sunday overall showed a different side of Fish that, oh, right, they're also a great straight ahead rock band too, even though they had some amazing jams in the second set we'll get to. But they also just kind of showed off what they can do. They showed off their talent a bit without necessarily making improvisation the big centerpiece of set one. But Carini would have been my overall highlight if I had to go back and pick one track from set one to listen to over and over again. That's it. You're muted, Brian.
You are mute.
I know how to do this, I promise. I got a bunch of texts from people immediately after the Carini that it was like one of their favorite jams from the overall tour. And I was like, I looked back and I was like, I think it was just 9 minutes, but like, I also don't think you're wrong. Like they got whatever 3 or 4 minutes of jamming, they got so much accomplished in that time period. They found a theme, built on it, peaked it, and brought it right back to the Carini theme, which is just something that is it's such a focus point of 4.0 Fish, where they could play a 3-minute jam and it feels like it was 15 minutes. It's stunning. Megan, what about you? What was your big highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Carini as well. Got somewhere super interesting right away. Like that space rock that they're doing now is just really, really cool. But I also really liked the Ocelot. It was like bluesy, really peaky, perfect ending back into the song. I felt like it was really nice. It's exciting to hear what they're doing with Ocelot these days. It's like becoming like a little mini jam vehicle. It's exciting. I also think for me, Gumbo is always worth the price of admission. That is one of my most favorite songs to dance to. It's just so funky and just swampy, and you can bend down low and like get down there. Even with the falsetto singing, I was okay with it. I mean, it's cool. I think it's cool that he's trying new stuff, you know? But like musically, that version is awesome that they played last night. But I do think the falsetto singing was distracting for people. But I applaud Trey for trying new shit.
I think it takes getting used to. I'm sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I think it takes getting used to, because since I hadn't heard much of the tour at all, I didn't expect it even on night one when it was part of the harmonies. I forget which song.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, who's doing that? It can't be Fishman. But but it doesn't sound like Page, and I don't see Mike singing. Like, who is doing that voice? But I didn't believe it was Trey either by process of, because that's not how Trey sings. You know, I thought at the time. But it's not falsetto. Like he's not singing to himself in the car in a super high voice. He's putting the effort into singing in a different register than we expect him to. And I think once it gets dialed in and he picks his spots, which I think is what he's doing this tour, he's finding out where it does work and where it
trying
doesn't.
It out.
Because there are parts where it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think he's kind of finding his strengths. When he did it at Strawberry Letter 23, was it at Merriweather Post, I think? He hit that note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my God, that's like a real singer.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Trey has been, and he talked about it around the acoustic record release earlier this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been really, really working on his voice and his singing, and I think he's accessing his higher register. It's not falsetto. He's expanding his range. It's not perfect. But it's pretty good. As compared to what he might have done 15 years ago trying to hit those notes. So I think, people don't typically expand their vocal range at this age. So
They
what
don't,
he's
especially
doing
someone who doesn't
is
have
really
to, right?
surprising.
Yeah, like he
Well,
doesn't
yeah,
have to. He could sing these
but
songs the exact same way he always has, and people would love it.
he
So
could.
it's
But
impressive.
it's hard. Most people's range actually diminishes as
Yeah.
singers. Like most singers, they lose their range. So he's doing great stuff. I think it works pretty well, and it will dial in over time. So
Let
the
Trey Broadway. That's
I think it
awesome.
that's great.
I think it speaks to something that we've all been talking about, and Jonathan, you and I dove into this on our Friday mid tour recap. That was excellent on Friday. Um, they're approaching their 40th year, and one of the things that seems so fascinating to me about this year and last year, I think, goes along with it. But as we kind of wonder what next year will look like for the band, they seem to be making a conscious move to reinvent their songs in a sense, to figure out what else is there. So you have Golgi that has this section that's always been played the exact same, and
Hmm.
now they're saying actually there's something more that we can do with this. We're going to talk about it, I'm guessing, in set 2, because I think that a few of you will have this as your highlight. The Fish song has a new segment to jam off of now. After 40 years, they've figured out a new way to
Crazy.
jam the Fish song. The higher register, all these sorts of things. I think the band is just figuring out, like, what else is there? A lot of these
Yeah.
songs we've played the same way for 25, 30 years, but inherently we are an experimental band who's also a rock band. How do we marry those two things a little bit more and figure out, do we have 10, 15, 20 years left of this thing? Who knows? But let's figure out how to tinker and tweak this as much as possible. Um, Jonathan, before we jump into set break, what was your highlight of set 1?
I think it's Ocelot actually. Our good friend and sometimes co-host RJ texted or tweeted today about how Fluffhead was like the I don't remember the term, the big shot in the arm for the first set, but I honestly
Hmm.
think it's Ocelot. They stretched it a little, put a good jam in there, and that really kind of opened the door to the Fluffhead. It should not go unmentioned that the Wolfman's has a nice little jam in it too, though.
That was
Everything else
so
I think we've
good
covered.
to dance to,
Yeah,
too.
show opener no less.
Ooh,
Show
nice.
Yeah,
opener.
First one
rare,
since
first
like
time since
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long
Mhm,
time.
It
mhm.
reminded me of the show opener the first night of the April New Year's Eve run at the Garden, where Carini
Kareem.
opened the whole run, and it also had a pretty nice extended jam in it, which
Yeah.
was unexpected. And so when they opened with Wolfman's Brother, which isn't super unusual to be in the first set at the beginning of a show, but that they did stretch it out a little, it's like you said, Brian, they're not letting it be. They're not letting it
Right.
settle and pulling it out.
For me, the Wolfman's was a great surprise. It was really cool that we got that in that slot and we got a bit of a jam. For me, it was the Tube. Tube has been throughout 2021 was expanding, and then it seemed to be contracting a little bit here this summer, where it was getting down to like 6-7 minute versions with a cool little funk jam. David Miller, great friend of the pod and great guest from our Blossom recap, said the Blossom version was a warm-up. I think he's right. That was like the
Hmm.
moment where they rediscovered, oh, actually this middle section of Tube, there's stuff we can do with it. And we got a 12-minute version out of it that went completely off the radar, off the charts. It was a really, really great spot for it. And then to follow that with Mountains of the Mist, a really cool Ocelot. I was into this first set. It was a little bit more muted than the first two nights. Didn't have like the big Sigma Oasis bathtub gym, but it
Hmm.
had enough, I think, to really, really dig it. Um, let's jump here really quickly into set break, and our set break is brought to us by our friends at Sunset Lake. Megan, would you be willing to tell us about, I'm sure you've needed Sunset Lake throughout this weekend, would you be willing to tell us about our friends at Sunset Lake?
Yes, I definitely have needed them, and I'm going to continue to need them this week because this is a week of recovery for me. So, Sunset Lake's line of smokable hemp products are for the old deadhead or for the young fish fan, anyone searching for a mellow body high, anybody recovering from a long weekend in Atlantic City. You can smoke CBD. It's got all the benefits of high THC cannabis, but it doesn't have any of the paranoid or anxious side effects. They've got 9 different strains from this year's harvest, so there's something for everyone. The Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show, and Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. Even better, Sunset Lake CBD's farm-to-table approach gets you great pricing on their premium CBD flower because they ship directly from their farm to your door. And yes, these sleep gummies got me through this weekend because I was coming back to the room late at night after going to after parties, and my room had like a real serial killer vibe. So I definitely needed something to just like help me relax and go to sleep right away. So I was taking a lot of the Sunset Lake CBD melatonin sleep gummies. They are like heaven on earth. So please get some. You can check them out and all their products at sunsetlakecbd.com. If you use the coupon code HFPod, you're going to get 20% off all your products. That's Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned and Vermont grown.
Brian, just to focus on you for this, what was your big set break routine here during the AC run? How did it all work being on a beach when the band would take a break?
I did my best to convince myself I'm not that old when my glutes and my legs and my lower back were telling me you have to sit down. You have to sit down. You're being destroyed. Your lower body is just gonna give out at any minute. But then my other suburban part of me was like, don't sit down. You're gonna get sand all over your pants. So my set breaks were spent mired in anxiety, trying to, maybe I should use those CBD chews, but trying to just really, but seriously though, just excitement. Yes, stretching like the old man that I'm becoming, but excitement. There was plenty of room to walk around, which was super fun. Like we mentioned, it was less crowded than normal. No lines for anything, just a lot of this. How about that set one? That was awesome. Like very typical, excited, outdoor with beautiful weather, fish set break. Nothing extraordinary, nothing boring. Just counting down the minutes till they came back on and making nice small chat with those around us.
That's
and
it.
avoiding
That's
sand.
it right there. And avoiding sand. That's it right then and there. I love it. Megan, did you have anything outstanding that happened during set break?
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody that came up. We had a lot of amazing people coming up all weekend and during set break and pre-show, just saying hi and saying they listened to the pod and just being really great and generous. And I just really appreciated that. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody that came up and said hi. I got to meet the incredible Perp. It was incredible. So thank you to everybody that came by and said hi. And I had a great time. Yeah, I was dancing on the platform because I do not dance on sand. So props to you, Brian. So
I
was
don't
just
dance
up on,
either. I just move my shoulders like this a little bit.
There you go.
I'm
Yeah.
probably like Brian. I feel like he and I have similar vibes.
It's not a lot. It's very. I'll be feeling it the first moment they walk out on stage. There's a dance move that I do that is not a dance move, but is as close as I get to dancing. That only happens at Fish shows.
Does it have a name, Brian?
It's just like a very angular movement that only comes out once I hear Fish. I turned into like a 90-degree angle and just kind of like bob back and forth. That's all I can do.
Cue the Elaine Bennis.gif.
There's
Exactly.
very much of that. So the band comes out for the final set of the weekend. We get our first standard Mike's Groove in a long time, since Vegas 2021. Everything since then has been kind of weird. Oh no, sorry, since MSG 2022. I was talking with friends about Mike's Grooves, and that like the last really stretched out one was Vegas 2021. But we've had a lot of like unique Mike's Grooves throughout this tour, because we had in the spring tour, we had the set long Mike's Groove that happened in Alabama. In Great Woods, we had Weekapog the first night, and then Mike's Hydrogen the second night with no Weekapog. We had some interesting stuff that happened later in the tour, but this was our first standard Mike's Groove since MSG. Followed that up with a Wave of Hope, into You Enjoy Myself, into Susie Greenberg. And I was quite shocked when after Susie they said, we're going to see you guys later, because it felt like it went by in a just like blink of an eye. Then we encore with Waiting in the Velvet Sea appropriately, and First Tube. Megan, tell us, what was your big highlight of the second set here?
The You Enjoy Myself. I had my You Enjoy Myself hat yesterday. just to be clear, I also wore the tweezer hat the night before. So I don't know. My hats have the calls apparently. But
Did you
I
wear
mean,
a Mora hat the night before that?
I did.
You
Wow,
Oh
did.
you
my
tell.
God. Oh my God. I called everyone. My dog just got very excited. That is crazy, Brian. I forgot that. Okay,
That's
so
crazy.
clearly, whatever hat I'm wearing at the show, you're going to hear that song.
We
I'm
have to
gonna
get
get
you a
one
sea
else.
and sand
I
hat.
need an Iculus
Yes,
hat.
I
See
need
and
an
sand,
Albuquerque hat.
Iculus.
Life on
Yeah.
Mars hat, please.
Exactly. All right. Well, now I know what you're all getting for Christmas. But no, this yam was amazing. It was just gorgeous, gorgeous middle section. Mike sounded incredible. I was hearing him all weekend. I didn't hate this vocal jam as much as I usually do. I love how they're shorter. And there's something about anticipating that next second jam that just makes me happy about the vocal jam because I'm like, okay, this next second jam is coming. And that moment is so killer when they just all of a sudden like start picking up the instruments and just drop right back into just like some sick funk jam. So I just thought this yam was really celebratory. Felt great. It's great.
We have to just note that the Incredible Perp, a dedicated viewer and listener, has pointed out that while we're talking about hats, it's not
Yes.
characteristically hatless day for me today. So it is. It's a very
It's that new
strange
haircut
event
look.
here. It's a new, yeah. Just styled it up. Yeah, that yam was something else. And my big thought as it was happening was, they go into the vocal jam. Trey doesn't take his guitar off, and it's like, I don't know, 45, 60 seconds of them in the vocal jam before he starts playing music. And my first thought was like, "Oh, are they not going to do it anymore?" But I really loved how they got into the vocal jam and he didn't go with the first, okay, this is a groove. I can just play some funk chords and we can go. They got to a really weird segment of music. And it was the kind of thing that can kind of only come out of a vocal jam. And it almost felt like he was saying, if we're going to do this in this segment of the song, we're going to challenge ourselves and we're going to actually try to play music that's a little bit more challenging at this point in time. And it led to a really cool second jam. Brian, you being there as well, what was your big highlight of set 2?
It's that section of A Wave of Hope and You Enjoy Myself, which, by the way, when I've heard people call this the summer of segues, this was a true arrow with a line in it. If you remember those J-card arguments from years ago, what's just a carrot and which is a full arrow? This one is a full arrow. It's really great. I thought this is based on what I said earlier about how night 3, I thought was just going to be like the big rock show of the weekend where nights 1 and 2 were kind of big exploratory improvisation. Night 3 is just straight ahead, great arena rock fish. I was thinking that up until A Wave of Hope. And then A Wave of Hope into You Enjoy Myself. I can't separate them. They're one big chunk. And then I hadn't heard the newer version of You Enjoy Myself yet. That last night was the first time I heard it live. And I was just blown away because, like you said earlier in the show, that they've been taking these old songs. Golgi Apparatus, one of the oldest Fish songs. You Enjoy Myself. How can we add to them, change them, keep them interesting for us? And as a listener, it's keeping it interesting for me. It can't get better than that. It was like being on the front of a locomotive.
It really was. And it's wild to me that we have a very, very new song paired with a very, very old song, like the Fish song. And I love when they do stuff like this, where A Wave of Hope is this like, it's this new message for where Fish is, and it's this song that's just able to be jammed and explored without any sort of there's nothing holding it back. It's just like going, and it's going effortlessly. And then for that to go into You Enjoy Myself, it's just such a fantastic segment of music. Jonathan, how about you? Was there something else that hit you, or was that it?
I mean, it's A Wave of Hope. That's the jams in that get heavy and weird, and I am there for heavy and weird. I like the pretty stuff too, so I am thrilled that they played a proper total mics tonight, or last night rather. I Am Hydrogen is something that they should always play after Mike's song at some point, and so they did it, and that makes me happy as well. So, but yeah,
I
Wave
thought
of
of you,
Hope
John.
is where I'm at.
Wave of Hope is it for me. I just walked away from this weekend thinking, if you go back to Friday, Sigma Oasis, Soul Planet, Ruby Waves, A Wave of Hope, these new songs for the band, relatively new. If you go back to 2016, early 2017 Fish, these are 4 songs that you have no idea what they mean, what they sound like, and they are now the defining tent poles of Fish tours. But intermixed with that is an incredible Down with Disease on Friday, an incredible Tweezer on Saturday, and an incredible You Enjoy Myself on Sunday. So as this band is changing, as they're evolving, as they're writing new songs and letting those new songs speak for them, still there are these old war horses that have been there for them forever. The second they go into Down with Disease, you know you're going off somewhere. Tweezer the same way. You Enjoy Myself, a song that has been revitalized in this era Fish in a way that I don't think anybody thought it would. I was texting with a friend, like, I loved every Yem I've ever heard. Yem is one of those songs I will never complain about hearing. But I think that there is an argument to be built that, like, the band seemed slightly bored playing the song between 2012 and 2021. There weren't very standout versions. It was a very standard approach to the jam segment. There were a lot of years where they'd play it only 1 or 2 times during a tour, usually in like a sentimental spot like encoring at Magna Ball. But it wasn't really a song that they were relying on the way that they were still relying on Tweezer, still relying on Disease. Now it's being played like once every 4 shows, and they're playing it midway through set 1 or midway through set 2 in a way that really showcases like this is now a jam vehicle again, and this is an area of creativity. And that combined with these new songs, it's fascinating stuff.
Brian, I have a quick comment, which is to say, with the first part of what you were saying, we were talking about we have all this infusion of new content and then the old war horses. Some of those are seeming revitalized. It seems almost like you're talking about the audience at Fish shows too, because some of us are still out there, some of us feeling better than others, and then there's constant infusion of new fans, young fans who are picking it up and carrying it forward as well. And so it's nice to see the material reflecting that.
I love that, Jonathan. Yeah.
It's a good sentiment to close on. So before we go, the last thing that we need to do, Brian, imagine it is 2027. You are sitting around having a conversation with friends. They're asking about great sets, great runs, great shows you've been to. You went to the Atlantic City run and you want to tell them what was the lasting moment. What is the thing you need to go back to and listen to? In this segment, the lasting highlight of the show, lasting highlight of the run, is brought to us from our friends at Fans for Racial Equity, free, which seeks to build an anti-racist live music scene and promote liberation through racial equity in the world at large by activating the collective power of our community. By facilitating thoughtful engagement around race and its intersection with other issues, Free empowers fans to challenge discrimination and systemic oppression wherever they see it. To get involved in Free's education, outreach, and community partnership programs, sign up to volunteer at fansforracialequity.org. You can see that on the screen, or you can share in the groove at the Free table during a show. They will be at every venue for the rest of Fish's summer tour. So, Brian, what was your lasting highlight of this overall run?
If I had to dig and bury a time capsule of just this weekend, and I had limited time to do it, I would tell my grandchildren, listen to set 2 from Friday night straight through all the time. And then on the B side, because in the future we're going back to Maxell tapes, on the B side, put Sigma Oasis as the filler for the end of the tape. So that is what I thought. That was my favorite. It played to my sensibilities for why I like to go see Fish live.
That's it. Meg, what do you got?
I think that's just perfect. I think what people really want to remember, or what I want people to remember about this time, is this way that they're finding melodies so quickly in jams and then deconstructing them and adding in all of these like space elements. And there's just a lot of like dystopian sounds and warping of melodies. And I think that that's really fascinating. And so, yeah, I think that set 2 from night 1 and that Sigma is just really, maybe that whole show. Is that too much to ask? Maybe that whole show.
We only have room for 1 tape, Megan.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so set 2.
I'm going to make this 3 for 3. This is going to be very, very simple. I think there's incredible stuff to check out, as we've all said, on Saturday and Sunday. But to me, it is exactly as Brian listed. Saturday set 2, give me that on a tape, flip it over, and you got a Sigma Oasis. That's it. That is a segment I'm going to be listening to because there's no way to pick just one part out of that set. And that to me is, I said it at the top, I think it's one of the greatest second sets the band has ever played. Not putting any numbers on it. I don't know if it's top 75, top 150, top 300. I don't know. I'm sure if you listed out the greatest second sets this band has ever played, you're getting very, very close to at least 250, like just pure great second sets. It's one of the best things that this band does is when they lock in for a 90-minute chunk of music, when it's all dark and there's improvisation and cool transitions and great song selections. And that happened on Friday. That is it for me. So that is my lasting highlight. Brian, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Thank you so much for what you do on your show. Once again, you can find Brian at the Attendance Bias podcast. Subscribe, listen, give him a like, give him a rate, give him a review, 5-star rating, please, because it's an excellent podcast. Megan and I have both been on it. If you have never checked it out before, those are potentially good ways to dive in, but there's a ton of great guests and great topics. Brian does an incredible job with the show. Thank you so much for hanging with us, man.
Thank you for having me. I love doing this. Obviously, I love talking fish, and to do it with so many different people about a show that just happened while everything's still fresh and fun. And it's not just looking back and having the memories of listening to a show, which tends to happen when you talk about something that happened a long time ago. It's truly a joy. I would also add that anyone who's listening that would like to be on Attendance Bias, if you have a great story or a meaningful event or something that happened to you that you feel like you want to talk about at a show, just email me attendancebias@gmail. One word, attendancebias@gmail.com. We'll talk about it. But thank you so much for having me. I had the best time. I could do it again over and over.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Brian. And also just thanks for being such an awesome and nice guy. I've loved getting to know you and seeing you at shows. So
cheers. Back at you.
Awesome.
We'll talk with you soon, man. We'll have you back on here.
Sounds good.
All right, dude. Rest up. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. And one last thing before we go here, we just want to tell you to tune in to our friends over at Wook Plus for more great content. The Lot is going live pre-show on Wednesday for the Toronto show, as well as they'll be doing The Lot throughout the remainder of this summer tour, even though the band will not be playing. They will also be doing the Afterfish after show, which goes live 15 minutes post-show. You can watch both of those on Twitter at Wook Plus and on YouTube if you search Wook Plus. Great stuff from great dudes. Shout out to everyone here with Toronto predictions. Maybe they get a Rick Grupp. Maybe they get a Squirming Coil opener. Maybe they get a Caspian Encore that's got a cool Magnaball type of jam. Incredible Perp says they most likely will not get a first set closing You Enjoy Myself, although they've done it 3 times up there. And past guest for the Jones Beach run, Mr. Elliot Chigger, will be in Toronto. So if you see him, say hey. Awesome dude. Really great to have him on the podcast.
Good vibes.
Very, very good vibes. We will be back. We've got a interesting schedule coming up here as we're moving through the final parts of summer tour. So we'll be back on Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern for an HFPod live non-touring edition. RJ and Megan, I think Jonathan, will be diving into 8997 from Alpine Valley, which is an incredible show. Kind of prepare us for the Alpine Valley run. And then we'll be back on Thursday morning at Thursday afternoon, 1 p.m. Eastern, for a recap of the Toronto show. We will have Scotty King as well as Malcolm Howard of Free on the show at that point in time. And then we'll be back all weekend to recap the Alpine Valley shows. My first shows of summer 2022. My first shows since LA 2021. I'm very excited. We'll have Scott Marks on for a few of those shows as we wrap up Fish's main touring leg of the summer 2022 tour before they do the Dick's run. Anything else, Meg? Are we good?
I think we're good.
I think we did it. Thank you all for hanging with us. Brian, thank you so much for hanging with us. Megan, thank you so much for recuperating and giving us your thoughts. This was a ton of fun. We'll be back on Wednesday at 4:30 to talk about, I can't speak at the end of a podcast, talk about the Alpine Valley from 1997 show. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Bye, everyone.